Hey everyone! Today I am going to be doing the third installment in my MtG Gathering Basic series, and the last one kind of like the introduction to all the colors. So today I'm going to be talking about the last two colors, red and green. So jumping just right into it, red. Red is the color of emotion, of impulse, of freedom and like free spirits. Red characters they're driven by their emotions, whether that be just being a bit more than it probably should, just be driven, being like classified as like kind of like hot-headed and impulsive, but also like someone who's very driven by their hopes and desires, or just follows their heart wherever they may go. Red manifests oftentimes of anger, but it really is associated with any emotionally driven character. So red kind of just it wants what it wants and it goes after it, not kind of in the sense of black, where like black knows what it wants and it'll pay any price, but like red is definitely the act first, think later. It is the not like the opposite. It's when the enemy colors are blue, but it is like kind of like in terms of that sense, it is the opposite, where blue is very much methodical, playing everything out. Let's make sure this works. While red's just like seize the opportunity now. Let's get it over with. Let's go. We'll figure out how to deal with the consequences when we get to there. So yeah, no, red is definitely like, you might classify red as just, it gets impulsive. It's irresponsible to a degree. But also it cares deeply. It feels deeply because it's like emotionally driven. It cares about the like deeply about like friends and just but also generally people as a whole, where red characters, they want to be free to follow their passions and do what they want, and they also want everyone to follow their passions and to be able to do what they want. Where there's a, not every red character, but there is a communal solidarity in the need to express yourself and be free in that way. In that sense, like a lot of kind of like rebel type characters and like freedom fighters, like you saw a lot in like Kaladesh Ether Revolt, are in red. Otherwise you find just like a lot of the people just driven by their impulses. Like werewolves are often in red as well as in green, but like kind of like the very grounded in that. It's the tertiary color in a lot of ways of humans, where humans are largely, when you're talking about human tribal, is largely white and green. Red is kind of the tertiary color of that, where white and green contains a lot of the community and like the solidarity between them. Red is kind of like that impulsive, like dreaming side of human society. So like farmers in a mob would be red. And that sort of thing. So, yeah. Mechanically, red packs a punch. Red likes to do damage directly. That's how it removes creatures. It just deals damage to them. It is really good at taking care of artifacts with things like Vandal Blast and like by force and effects like that. It's like keyword is haste. It likes to just get in there and attack immediately. Like if you don't play magic, when you play a creature, you can't actually use it right away. You have to wait a turn, but if they have haste, they can do stuff right away. So it's very important. It's like very neat if you have like a big creature that can play them with haste and like be able to swing in immediately with it. You can like win games out of nowhere. When red is very good at this. It's also good at, like I said, it's doing damage both to creatures and just directly to the other player. Like, the archetype of burn is primarily in red. Thematically, red is all about, has like a lot of motifs of fire and like lightning, electricity, and that sort of things. Like the most famous red card is probably very simply Lightning Bolt. 1 red, deal 3 damage to anything. It's also very broken. It's very good. And honestly, that Lightning Bolt is kind of quintessentially what red is trying to do. Just put in, like, our creatures are usually pretty big. Not as big as green, but they're usually pretty big, and they usually have some way of like evading, so or just being hard to deal with, even if they aren't quite at the like pure stats of green creatures. Or like usually they'll have either like haste, first strike's very common, menace is becoming more common nowadays, and that sort of thing. It also, in terms of like other effects that I really like in red, is that they also have like damage doublers a lot of the time, where like it'll be like if you control this permanent, all your effects deal double damage and things like that. So it likes to do lots of damage. Damage is kind of the key. Like there's very few things that like it. I mean, well, unless for a few cards there are color play breaks, there aren't. You don't see things that are just like, oh, destroy this creature. No, it's always do this much stuff to it. Like its wraths say like do 20 damage to every creature on the board and things like that. So that's words, I mean things. Yeah, but red characters, I mentioned this before, but like a lot of them just kind of come across as like very hot-headed and like impulsive and whatnot. Like the key red character Chandra. Although I love Chandra, don't get me wrong, Chandra's the best. Okay, she's not the best. I mean, that's. I'm not gonna get into this, but I will. But because the best character is Elspeth, and don't get me wrong. Never forget. Go to hell, Heliod. Yeah. But like she's very impulsive, but also like a lot of the other red characters are very, like just like that, like Tybalt and Koth and Giant Ballard and a lot of different characters are kind of done that way. I mean, genres, they've been doing a bit better about it and showing more of her like non just angry side and kind of like the more like emotional, like just like very emotionally driven side. But I don't know. I like understand why they trick you on anger as a emotion, just because I mean, Magic's game, but you're fighting the other person. So like anger is probably the emotion most prone to like fighting and like violence and combat and stuff. So like it makes sense why like those you don't just have characters who are all about, I don't know, writing love songs and whatnot, because I mean they probably just don't have the best stats on the board. Like, let's be honest, poets aren't the best at fighting. Yeah. What was I talking about? I'll fight a poet any day. Come at me. So yeah, no, but red has both. Red, I feel, almost has like the widest spectrum of whether a character is like good or not, because you have like on one hand like the ones who are like the freedom fighters who like just want to like fight for like the champion, the downtrodden and whatnot, and like just like be very impulsive and whatnot. Well, at the same time you have like just completely destructive creatures, which like the Minotaurs of Theros, who just like all they care is about just like let's wreck some people's shit and get under that, like giants and like all those different types of things. It's just very that the raw energy and impulsiveness and destructiveness of things is accompanied in red. And then meanwhile you have also just like a lot of just people like who are just people and aren't like strictly there, who are just like, yeah, they're impulsive, but they're not like good or evil, like maybe a little irresponsible, but yeah. So it's kind of like red really runs the gauntlet, and also like a lot of the inherent like goodness of the person is really also depends on your point of view, where they're like recklessness and like what your view on like irresponsibility and whatnot, and like what is your opinion on there kind of like shapes your opinion of red characters in a lot of ways. But yeah, what else can I say about red? Red is honestly probably my least favorite color to play. I don't know, I need to play more of it. I mean, I'll play it if it's open in the draft pool, but red is very aggressive, and I like dirtling, and it's hard to dirtle with red just because it wants to get in there. You want to punch their face, and yeah. No, it's just, I don't know, I just don't play enough red. I need to play more of it. I guess I also, like, in constructive, my primary format is Commander. And red, in many ways, is the weakest color in Commander, just because red is very good in, like, one-on-one situations where you just want to get your opponent dead, but when it's, like, burn is much harder in Commander, and, like, being super aggressive with creatures isn't as good in Commander. So, yeah, I don't know, I need to play more red. But also just, like, in draft, like, if you finish, like, games really fast, like, you just gotta wait around for, like, the next one. Like, online, that isn't an issue because you can just drop into the next game in the league, but, like, oh no, I won that game super quickly, now I have to, like, wait 40 minutes until the next round. What am I gonna do? Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration. Actually, I have legit one that wasn't my opponent dropping, and, like, fastest, like, in, like, I think it took like 6 minutes, but that was not a normal game, but I was playing red. I was playing, it was white-red vehicles in Colorless draft. But when the person next to you doesn't know what they're doing and they pass you a smuggler's copter, after you first picked a Paula and then you pick up 3 renegade raiders, you win games very quickly. That was a good deck. But it won so quickly, and I was so bored every time. I'm like, okay, now I don't get to play Magic. So, yeah. Moving on to a color that I really like. It's my second favorite color after blue, and that would be green. Green is the color of, like, balance and, like, nature and that sort of things. Green sees the world and kind of, like, accepts it. That the world is as it is, for the most part. Like, the natural state of the world is how it should be. Green is opposed to change, or at least quick change, like overtime change. Unless that changes, of course, like moving it back to a state of previousness. But encompasses both kind of like all facets of nature, both the very, like, peaceful, serene side, as well as just the brutal, savage side. So you get a lot of, like, the large, like I mean, classically bears and, like, large beasts and, like, animals and stuff. Like, a lot of wild animals end up being green, and it contains all of the dualities of nature are there, both in like a lot of both creative forces of nature as well as destructive forces of nature. But probably two things really categorize green mechanically, and that is ramp and creatures. Ramping is pretty much getting more mana to cast bigger and bigger spells, and green is the best at this. They have the best spells like Ramp Grove, Kendama's Reach, all those other ones, Cultivate, Farsake, all green, all amazing. Sky Shard Climb, Nature's Way, no, Nature. It's the Sky Shard Climb that is the same, except unlike Scream, it enters the reserve 2 forests and enters Battle Tap. What is that called? Is it Nature's Claim? It might be. Well, that's a tangent. But yeah, but it's very good at ramping and trying to get to a lot of mana. And what does it use at mana? Really big creatures. Like, of all the colors, green has the best stats on its creatures. Where if you just want to have big numbers and swing in with a creature of trample, play green. Like, I like blue because I love countering spells, but I love the simplicity in green of the word trample. What a beautiful word. But yeah, no, there's just a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with green. Other things that green is good with, not as quite as much as white, but it likes enchantments a lot. So, that's like a major, like a sub-theme. Like the trample is kind of like its main keyword. As well as like it's starting to get a lot of stuff that like where it can't be blocked by small things and other forms like of evasion. Like it doesn't like avoiding combat entirely. It's more just like I will crush you and kill you because you will fight me. Its main removal is fight spells, where you have to have a creature to remove stuff in green, except for Beast Within, because that's a color by break. And essentially, you kind of like have a mini combat outside of like the actual combat step, and like have your giant crocodile just go to town on their Gustwalker. Yeah, no. I loved blue-green. My favorite archetype in Amonkhet Draft was probably blue-green ramp. Just ramping into a scale behemoth, putting on a cartouche of strength on that thing, and then just like eating your guy. Now I have like a 7/8 trample hexproof. But on a cartouche of knowledge, now it's a flyer, and you lost the game. Because how are you going to deal with that with just your creatures? Like seriously. But yeah, so just the big creatures, yeah, and you then kill. They also like to grow their creatures, so it has a lot of effects of like +1/+1 counters and things like that. Oh, that's also secondary to a few other colors too, but it likes to, the idea of growth is often also with green, where we're becoming better and like improving ourselves. Back to like philosophically, like green characters like see the world as it is, or how it should be, in like the natural state, and like want to maintain that natural order. They very much care about keeping that. They care about other green people. They just really care about their own. And they're very kind of similar to white in that way, whereas white kind of wants the more like structured civilization side. Green is very much like less structured, but still take care of those who take care of nature. Like the poster child green character is Nissa, which of the core 5 is probably my favorite. She's an elf from Zendikar, and she is just like kind of like the very, very in tune with the world and all that, and very much caring about like I like hers because it's like she has this desire to care for worlds and things like that, but not often knowing the way to do it, and being like kind of like figuring out how to overcome the fear of doing it wrong, or not knowing what to do, or lacking necessarily the drive. Like if there's any weakness of green, it is they are slow to act. They are not the type to like they or like blue is slow to act in the way that they would like to think through their options before they act. Green is slow to act because of fear of doing the wrong thing, of having their actions and trying to maintain balance, actually throwing it out. And that is probably the core fear of a green character is losing that balance, where there might just not be. Green said, like, I keep talking about balance, but like that's kind of like the central green. There's also like tangents of that where there are creatures who are very much like not strictly in balance, usually paired with other colors, where there's this perversion of green, or like modern, like Grook in the modern story, where like he's just become this like just savage predator, and just going to town on some planeswalkers and whatnot, and cares more about this like revenge and vengeance rather than actual any sense of balance or order, and things like that. Characters like Vorinclex. I know I keep going back to the Praetors as the example of like the perversion of each color, but it's very very clear in that way, where he's the green praetor of New Phyrexia, where he's very much the let us bring balance to the one that is Phyrexia with the natural world, where Phyrexia is the natural and we must align with Phyrexia. Yeah, fun times. So yeah, no, or there is this idea of like in between green characters, there's also the discussion of like what is balance, what is the natural state, how far do you go, like what is natural. Like you saw like this very progressive and like pushing the boundaries of what is green, like Kaladesh, where they were very much like there was this in tune with nature but still very modern with like a lot of like the inventions and harnessing of nature that you saw in Kaladesh. Yeah, so yeah, green is cool. But yeah, that's probably all I have to say about green in terms of like the introduction to the color. So this is kind of like where I'm gonna, at least for the single colors, this is all the last of the single colors. I guess I could throw in a little bit of things about colorless, because there are colorless creatures, where there are there's a new recently as Oath of the Watch, there was a new like basic land which is wastes, which creates color, and it's the 6th type of mana, it's colorless mana. And the first thing to know is that colorless isn't a color, and both mechanically and philosophically, where colorless creatures, the primary ones being the Eldrazi, were these Lovecraftian horrors from outside like the plains and come and wreck everyone's stuff. They are colorless, where the colors doesn't have a color philosophy because it isn't a color. It's this void of anything sensical or knowledgeable. Like you don't have characters that are colorless except Ugin. Ugin's the exception, because Ugin Ugin is less colorless because his philosophy, like he's more of like a blue philosophy, but he is colorless because he harnesses like similar powers to the Eldrazi and whatnot. Notably, also artifacts are technically colorless, but that's more less on the philosophy of like these are eldritch, like ooh, this sword is an eldritch being from beyond the void, but more it's like this is an item, it doesn't have a mind of its own or such thing, or like kind of like adopts the philosophies of its creator, those around him. So artifacts and whatnot are colorless. They don't have an innate philosophy or things about them. So colorless is not a color, so know that. So continuing on this Magic the Gathering Basics series, I'm thinking I'm actually going to be talking about the lore a bit, although I don't know if that'll be just a separate like MTG lore series, rather than basic series, and keeping the basic series more talking about mechanics and kind of like general concepts and whatnot. But I haven't figured that out yet. But if you have any topics you want me to cover, I'll probably start also going through like videos for at least each of all the 2-color combinations, as well as maybe 3-color combinations, just because those are important to know how the colors work in tandem, and like follow the changes in philosophy and whatnot. It happens when you like mash them together, because you have these 5 components that together each of them has its own properties and how they change, where the 2 of them combined is more than just the sum parts of the 2 of them. It loses some parts and gains others and changes. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed these first 2 parts of this video, and I will see you for that the next installment, whatever that ends up being. I hope you have a wonderful night's sleep.